Slugs, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Slugs, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Damn it.
Let's
Can
try
you
one.
can
Yeah,
you hear me now?
I hear you now, man. You hear Brendan? B, say what's good. Slugs, did you write the lyrics down in the doc?
A few. Just one. I didn't look through that many songs, but they're pretty. I was trying to go into some like deeper tracks, but they're pretty straightforward.
So the way the bit works though is you got to get specific lyrics. I can do it. It's no problem. I used to do this with artists all the time, and artists love it. If you get like a real deep cut, and then you're like, dude, like, what did you mean when you said this? And then they would. It's kind of like what Genius does. It's similar.
Yeah. So he's the songwriter, but not the singer.
He's one of the singers.
He's not the lead singer. Is the live link up, B?
Yeah.
Sweet. Am I missing anything?
Oh, FYI, in the description, you have Marty Walsh's Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you. I'll change that right now. Who knows to his Instagram? That can be. Thanks for that, B. Thanks for that, big man. Slugs, can you shoot Ken a text and just say, hey, man, we're in the Zoom. We're ready whenever you are.
Yep.
Sweet. Hey, if anyone's tuned into the live, what's up, everybody? The live feature's starting to grow on me. I was a little bit apprehensive about it at first, but I feel like we kind of got it down to a science now. And it makes the upload afterwards much easier. But one thing I don't like about the live is that I can't bump music before the episode, which is like my thing. It's always been my thing. Anyway, man. Don't stick around, you should save yourself. I'm a sailor's peg, and I've lost my leg. That's how you feel, B? I like that.
That Rage Against the Machine vibes.
I know. No, that's you at the Patriots parade vibes. right back.
Hey,
Hey, Ken, can you hear me okay?
I can. Yeah,
Am I as handsome as you thought I was going to be?
way more.
Hey, so Sarah is on the Zoom with us. She just has audio today, though.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Ken, I just want to introduce myself, man. I'm Conor Holway. How are you?
Nice to meet you, buddy.
I'm just gonna hit this third camera here real quick, and I'll loop right back around. All right, man. Well, hey, man, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We have our third producer on the phone. His name's Brendan. Brendan, say what's up to Ken Casey.
Hey Ken, how you doing?
Hi, Brendan. How you doing?
So, Ken, do you think there's a more Irish name than Ken Casey in the city?
I'd say so. I think there's a few more. Yeah.
Mark O'Connor.
Kenneth is. I used to have a keychain for Kenneth in Gaelic, and it was like it was a great one. It was like born of fire, feared by men, desired by women. I used to carry that around for a while. I think it was at like a Dublin thrift store, though. I mean, a Dublin gift shop. They probably all just make up something like that for every name.
I know forever I thought Connor meant God's gift, but I think that was my parents just planting stuff in my head.
Yeah.
And then I found out it means like hunting dog.
Yeah, that sounds like about right.
What do you have kids?
I do, yeah.
What are they named?
They, Emma, Liam, and Colin.
Oh, so you went with the Irish names with them too.
Yeah, yeah.
So, before we move on, can you just give a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Ken Casey, Dropkick Murphys, musician, and I got dabble in restaurants and professional boxing as well, just
Yeah.
to drive myself crazy.
Yeah, that's what Sarah was saying. So what other, outside of the band, what other business ventures do you have?
So I have about 5 restaurant locations that I partner with a great guy that I grew up with, Brian O'Donnell, who actually knows how to run restaurants. So I like find the deal, come and involved with coming up with the concept, designing it, getting all the licensing and everything. And so it's like I work hard for 6 months, and then he works hard for the next 20 years. So I really like that. I really like that partnership. It's a good plan for me, but not having to deal with the day-to-day stuff of a restaurant. I mean, I couldn't do it, but I'm involved in shaking hands, kissing babies, and just showing up a lot of times for different events and stuff. So it's fun. It's more passion and fun than anything that's labor on my part. The boxing, on the other hand, we started Murphy's Boxing about 9 or 10 years ago.
Let's go. Do you have hands? Do you have good hands?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I don't
Let's
throw 'em.
go.
I used to, I'm 51, but I like to punch my my middle child Liam around. He's got a bit of a mouth, so he gets some he gets some
That old
pop.
South
Not
Boston
to the face.
beating.
Don't keep it clean. Not to the face. Never hit your kids in the face, because the marks will show at the emergency room. Just kidding. But we were just trying to help my friend Danny O'Connor, who was a professional fighter, Olympic alternate in Beijing, 2-time national amateur champ. And he was pro, and he was just, struggling with his career of had a newborn baby at home, having to go to Texas and train, but yet with his trainer, but yet still sell tickets to his fights in Boston. I was like, man, I would have thought it would have been an easier life for a guy with those accolades. And so I just got involved to try to maybe get him some press, introduce him to the Dropkicks fans, being an Irish American Boston kid. And next thing you know, I was his manager. Next thing you know, I was his promoter. Next thing you know, I'm promoting 15 other guys, and it's like quicksand. And that's a lot of work, because I don't really have someone like I do with Brian in the restaurants. It's me and my brother-in-law Sean Sullivan, and another kid who works for me. So it's all hands on deck. Everything from putting the shows together, finding the fights, setting up the chairs, printing the tickets, putting the wristbands on. So that brings me back to the early days of the band more, where
I was gonna say when you were hustling and scraping.
yeah, the old days at the Rat, which was the punk club here, that was a Boston's answer to CBGB's. And we'd be making flyers and standing out back, flyering our shows, and just booking our own shows and bringing bands from other cities. Basically the way that Dropkick Murphys got, once we built the following here, and we were selling out the Rat, which is maybe a 600 capacity club. It probably technically could have fit 300, but they used to pack it. And we would put on these all ages, all day, all ages matinee shows on weekends, and invite 7 other bands from 7 other cities, and we would headline. We still had our jobs and stuff, so we would pay all the out of town bands, and then those bands would owe us a show in their city. And that's how we toured in the early days. And Boston had an unbelievably strong punk scene in the mid 90s, and all these bands would leave, here wow, Boston was so good. When Dropkicks comes, we got to make it great for them. So not necessarily everyone, wasn't like we were going to go into that town and sell it out on our own yet. But that local band was going to make sure that it was full for when we got there. So I have to give a lot of props to Boston, and the Rat and all those.
Where was the Rat?
Rats, it was in Kenmore Square, right about where the Dunkin' Donuts is, right around there. There's the McDonald's in the corner, and then there's Dunkin' Donuts. That was right around where the front door was, but the all ages matinee shows used to enter from the backside, which is the road that's the little side road that runs along the pike on the opposite side of Lansdowne Street, because they didn't really want 300 kids in their teenagers and 20s to
Just
be
shattered.
lining up on Com Ave. So that was a way to kind of hide them to the back. Plus, they didn't want the kids, in the bar. This way, if you came in the back, you went right down into the concert hall and you didn't come through the bar at all. So that's the way all our shows went. We really never played a night show. We played one night show at the Rat ever. The rest were all ages matinees, and that's how a lot of the punk shows were back then. We played on St. Patrick's Day, 1996 or 97, our first year as a band. We played a night show there, and it didn't end well. So we got barred from Boston for a couple, I think 3 years before we could come back and play on St. Patrick's Day.
What happened?
The old man Menino was very, he wasn't a fan of Dropkick Murphys, and yeah, he just thought
Lost loves you guys, man.
Yeah, well, thank God. It's about time we had someone in our corner. He just had a misconception of punk rock in general, that it was super dangerous, and a lot of times if we played bigger shows that make us have metal detectors, and I'm like, these kids aren't bringing guns and knives. But anyway, it was just, he was of another generation and just didn't get it. And but those days are gone, and there's a new sheriff in town.
Marty. Hey, were you ever frequenting, were you doing shows at the Paradise ever, or Middle East? So I threw a show at the Middle East. Were you doing downstairs?
Yeah, we did the record release party for our first album was downstairs, and we never did advanced tickets, and so it was just tickets at the door, and there was a big scene because a lot more people than could fit showed up, and there was some cars flipped over out front. Once again, the one time that Man Menino kind of had it pegged right, but it wasn't even in Boston, it was in Cambridge. But yeah, we did the Middle East. The Middle East was not we did play shows at the Middle East, but the Rat was more our home because they were more welcoming to us than the Middle East. The booker at the Middle East kind of snubbed us in the early days, and so we never forgot that really. But we played just about everywhere. We played the Paradise a bunch of times.
Great Scott, was that around?
It was, but we never played Great Scott.
It got shut down.
Yeah.
So you guys start out in mid 90s, and how do you get, I know this sounds like the most millennial thing of all time, but how are you getting the word out effectively about your band? Are you just being consistent about your shows? Are you just saying, hey, everyone, we got a show tonight, come bring $10 and bring your friends?
It was more like $5, and t-shirts were $5. We printed them ourselves, and yeah, it was a totally different era. It was pre-internet. We used to do everything by local shows. We'd flyer. We were the only band not the only band, but we were the only ones really trying to tour. And when I say tour, we still had our jobs. We would basically take a Friday off and go, out on a Thursday and play a Thursday night somewhere, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and haul home through the night, Sunday night, and go to work on Monday or school or whatever. And, and then we did some shows where we flew to California. We did this compilation called I've Got My Friends, which was 8 Boston bands and 8 California bands. And this friends of ours in a band called the Swinging Utters, which were a pretty popular punk band at the time. And we released it on our own label. So we did a record release party for that compilation in San Francisco. So we flew out with no gear or anything and just borrowed all those other bands' gear, and we did a West Coast tour. So, I mean, we played California before we had played, much more out of we played New England and New York, and then flew to California and did that, and then just started to push it a little bit more out to Chicago. And, but you got the word out by, obviously flyering local shows and posters, and then taking out ads in like fanzines like Maximum Rock and Roll, and you know, we would press our own singles. We had our own label, and then when someone ordered a single, we had a catalog for like our T-shirts and our other stuff. And I wish I had it, because it surfaced recently, and it's unbelievable. It's just a basic 8.5 by 11 piece of paper folded over, and the designs are drawn by me like stick figure stuff. I am the word. It looks like literally looks like a 2-year-old drew it, and I would draw like a T-shirt and my best attempt at the design, and then list our other singles. And so when someone ordered a single, and it would take them a couple of weeks for us to get the order, and we get in our practice space, we'd fill the orders, we'd mail it to them. They get it a couple of weeks later, they'd open it up, probably out of pity at how bad the design was, they'd order a T-shirt or whatever. And so you think about the growth level is
You guys are hustling.
slow, but it's so slow and small because snail mail. But then there was something about that era that if you took the time to write a band and you ordered their stuff and you got it, you didn't, it's not like today where you can just jump on the internet and promote yourself. But at the same time, when someone went to those links and the band wrote back and wrote them a hand, written note, then they were your fan forever, and so the growth was very slow and steady, but it was more solid. I feel like today, like someone might click on your song today and go, that's pretty cool. And then the band name and the song's out of their head 10 minutes later, and they're on to a million other different things. So, it obviously has its drawbacks, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It seems like 7 lives ago, but it was, and to think about how far we've come in that time. And we had our first van was an MBTA. If you've ever seen, I don't even know if they have them anymore. They were called The Ride. It was the handicapped van to pick up handicapped people to take them to the train. And it was called The Ride, and it said MBTA on it, and it had a high roof for handicap. So we bought one of those used, and we would tour in that. And the best part about that is you could, if you had to take a piss, we had a funnel out the back window, and you could just, it had its own bathroom, and we were dropping one of
Not really, but kind of.
we were dropping one of those California bands off, because we had returned the favor and brought all the California bands out here to tour in our van, which was a scene. You had about 16 people standing in this van driving around. But we would drive into the airport, and we were dropping them off at Terminal B at Logan. And if you go into Terminal B at the end, you make a loop around, and it says like low height. And there's usually a sign hanging down to warn you, but the sign was down, and we took the roof off and peeled it back like a can. And we continued to tour for 2 more years like that. And I was the co-pilot.
You're barbarians, man.
Rick would drive, and I was the co-pilot with the maps, and we would just have an umbrella inside the van driving with a hole in the roof. And if it rained, you use the umbrella. So we've come a long way since those days,
So you came up with the concept originally. Did you know it would stick in the city? Like, we're going to create like an Irish-based fighting song band. Did you know it was going to work, or?
I don't know if that was the description I was using. I just think that we were like, we were fans, our own music growing up was punk rock, but like, had that influence of Irish music just by osmosis from the, how, just being raised around Irish music and stuff. And so I think in the very beginning days, like, we didn't even have the Irish instrumentation yet. It was just a 4-piece, but maybe the songwriting style was like telling stories, and it kind of like this rambling, quick delivery, like the Pogues and a lot of Irish music. So that maybe made it slightly different than a lot of punk rock that was out there at the time. And we never really had a plan. We would just like write these songs, and then the reviews would come out and say it's like the Clancy Brothers meets the Ramones, and then we were kind of like, yeah, all right. And then it's kind of like if you build it, they'll come. There wasn't a lot of kids in the mid-90s rolling around playing banjo and accordion. And all the guys that we knew that did were all like older, families, cops or whatever, bagpipes of fire department, and they weren't going to
bagpipe players.
Yeah, they weren't going to jump in a van and go touring around the country. So after the first couple of records came out that had our friends playing on those albums, but they wouldn't tour with us, suddenly we'd show up and there'd be kids that learned those instruments, and that's how one guy that was in the band for probably 4 or 5 years, we rolled through Cleveland and he showed up and got on stage and played, and he just got in the van and came with us. And we could semi kidnapped him. I mean, he didn't fight it, but
Now, when you're hustling and gigging around the city a bunch, what is your full time? Like, how are you making money to keep the thing alive?
First of all, we really weren't gigging around the city much, and that's one of the things that I think was important. We made it special, like you played maybe once every 3 or 4 months. You know what I mean? Or unless a big band came through that you're opening for, and when I say a big band, I just mean more like an old
Commercial,
school punk band that we liked. I mean, it wasn't like they were playing the Garden; they might have been playing the Rat as well. But we wanted to play with them just because we loved the band. We all still had our jobs. I mean, I was working in the Building Records Demolition Union. I was bartending at Symphony Hall. I was going to UMass Boston at night for a special ed teaching degree. And so we were hustling and then hustling. The band started out of Symphony Hall. I had always been talking about starting a band just as a joke, like to play covers in a basement, never to play in front of real people. And a kid that I worked with, Matt, at Symphony Hall, went to Berkeley, and he said, my band has a show in 3 weeks. I dare you to open for us. So just on a laugh, two of us got together. Two of us that had never played got together with two friends that had played, but and we put a band together and we played at this place, Club 3 in Somerville. And it was basically all, that's not there anymore either, but
where in Somerville?
I forget the address now.
Our studio's right in Union Square there.
No, it's not near Union Square. It's up a little bit more. What's the main drag? Not Broadway, but the one that would be to the Cambridge side of that. It'll come to me. But it was
a much different city now, man.
Yeah, well, it was the type of place that they would pay the bands by. It wasn't like the place, like one of the bigger, more known venues where people would be coming to hang or whatever. Like, people only came to this place to see the band that was playing, like their friends, because all the bands weren't popular. So it'd be like, Dropkick's on at 8 o'clock, another band at 8:30, another band at 9, almost like a showcase. There'd just be a band every half hour the whole night. And when you got to the door and you paid your $5, the lady would ask you who you here to see, and they put a check mark, and then you'd get paid based on how many people said they were there to see you. And we brought in a lot of friends, not like fans of what we were doing, just friends that were there strictly to laugh at, like, hey, you want to come to my show next week? They're like, show? What? You're in a band? And so they, we weren't doing it for money, obviously, anyway. And so, yeah, we did it basically on a bet that I had with a kid I worked with at Symphony Hall. And that's how that started. And then as it picked up eventually, about 9 months later, we all made that decision of like, hey, maybe we'll, take leaves of absence from our jobs or school. And Symphony Hall was a great job for a teacher because you worked, you had summers off because Symphony went to Tanglewood. So everyone that worked there was a teacher because you'd work the 2 jobs during the year and then have summers off from both jobs. And you got a pension out of there and everything. It wasn't your normal bartending gig. So nobody left that job. It was a really good paying, easy job. And so I was very concerned. I keep going, I'm going to do another tour. You still going to hold my job? You're still going to hold my job? And I think technically they're still holding my job. I don't know. I might go back someday.
You should go back.
At one point they remodeled the bars, and there were these little like closets off the bars that you could kind of go hide in. And I used to have this black and white TV, little 8-inch TV that I could watch, like peek my head in and look at Bruins or Red Sox games or whatever. And everyone would hang their uniforms in there and change. And the bartenders are all still there. So if I take my kids to the Christmas pops or whatever, I'll see them and say hi. And I think it was last year or the year before. They said when they demoed the bar, everyone was cleaning out their uniforms, and someone said, there was one shirt that no one took, and they said, "Whose is this?" And it was mine. It had been hanging there for like 20 years, or more than 20 years. So, and not a very, it doesn't say a lot for their cleaning purposes, but everyone just was assuming it was someone else's for years. So,
Have you played there with the band yet?
yeah, we have. We didn't do a proper concert, but we did.
That must have been like totally like super real for you.
Yeah, the Red Sox did a 100th on the 100th anniversary of Fenway Park. They did an event there, and we joined the Pops and played a few songs. And I got to stand on that stage and tell the audience the story of how the band started. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. So how old are you when you say after that 9 months? How old are you when you say?
I'm like 25 at the time. So.
Did you always?
I got a late start.
Like, did you always know that? Like, all right, I kind of got a motor. I mean, I can just tell by talking to you. You kind of got the ADHD like me, man. You got the bug a little bit. Did you always know you were gonna kind of win?
No, I think you just have that. There's a certain obsessive compulsive.
I feel you can
go for it, but yeah, I had also had. I had some rough teenage years, and I was behind the 8 ball. So like. That's why I was still like working and in school and in my mid 20s, so like, I also felt like I didn't have a lot of time to waste, in terms of, it wasn't like, yeah, we're like late teens, early 20s. Let's go see the country. We were just working, you know what I mean? And we never had any desire to make the band. Every time we like went on a tour in the mid 90s in those early days, it was always like, wow, what an opportunity, because I never got to travel before the band. So it was always like, wow, let's do this for the experience. It was never with the goal of having this become our career. I don't even know when that time happened. It was probably a good 4 or 5 years into the band. And even then it was still like a working experience. It was like you were hustling and you had to go on tour, and you had to, like a lot of bands would get signed. We got signed to Hellcat Records, which was a part of Epitaph, which at the time was the biggest independent label, not a major. Like Offspring, Rancid, all those bands are on it.
What city are they out of? New York?
No, they're out of LA. And so, but a lot of bands that would get signed like that, and they were an independent label, so it's not like they were throwing around millions of dollars, but they would give a band, say, tour support. If you were going to go on tour, they'd front you 10 grand so you could, afford to stay in hotels, or, maybe rent a nicer vehicle for the tour. And, but that 10 grand would have to be paid back by the band, against your recording royalties. And we never took those loans. We always toured in this shitbox van. We always slept on people's floors, or there'd be 5 or 6 of us between the band and crew. And we'd stay in one hotel room. And the big thing at the end of the night was flip a coin for who was going to get the 2 beds. And we never shared beds, you know what I mean? So like we couldn't even, so it was like 4 guys were sleeping on the floor every night. We'd flip coins by process of elimination of who got to, and it was the most exciting. We get in that hotel room and take out the coins, and the coin flip was like, oh, it was like Vegas, because you wanted that bed. So.
Is it weird for you being like successful now? Because I feel like you miss all the days where you were just grinding.
Life's still a grind. I mean, I don't know many people that, unless you're some kind of.
I mean, like, do you miss like eating beans out of a can?
No, I hate beans, so I was more of a peanut butter and jelly guy when I was, no, but I mean, I think the boxing stuff brought me back to the work wise, how, more of a grind. I mean, the band is lucky because we've had, awesome people working for us forever. So I will say that the band is like, I've been able to remove myself from that. Like, I used to be the guy counting t-shirts to booking the shows to everything. So like now, like I can focus more on obviously I'm involved in the decisions, but I don't have to be running myself ragged on the, day
operations. Yeah.
That's nice. But at the same time, I think there was a part of me that missed it. So I think that's how I that's why the Murphys boxing kind of filled that void and renewed the entrepreneurial spirit to a degree. And like you said, the ADHD, that sometimes, guys like us don't get it right. Like, you want some time to yourself and to relax, but you also like to stay busy. And when you're someone who likes to stay busy, oftentimes you err too far on the side of trying to stay busy. And next thing you know, you're chasing
Spread way thin.
And I will say that this whole, terrible situation we're in has at least given me a little perspective on that. Like, oh man, maybe after this comes back, I need to stop and smell the roses a little more. And
yeah, good luck. Say that now.
America's going to come out of this as either gung ho, ready to go, and everyone's going to want to attack, but we're all going to go like, how about we make it a 2-day work week and a 5-day weekend? So I think it's going to be one or the other. And I don't know where I'll fit yet. I might be a lazy bastard.
I don't know, man. Some of my friends, mind you, I'm 24, already talking about retirement. I'm like, what? I want to work until like you literally have to throw me off a cliff.
Yeah. Well, I heard someone say, I don't know what it was even in, it was on like a TV show or something. They were congratulating someone on retirement. And they say, just remember, once you're retired, there's no days off. Like, you don't get a day off from retirement. You're always retired. And I can't see myself like, gardening around the house or whatever. So I'll probably always have to dabble in something,
How have you been keeping busy in the quarantine?
I don't know. We are working on a new album, so I'm still, and that's mostly done, but there's still a few things we're trying to finish. So I've been working on music, and also we're planning a concert for the next 2 or 3 weeks. That'll be a big live stream for charity from a major famous location.
Save it to the end, because we
I can't announce it yet anyway because I don't have permission yet.
I mean, I think if anybody has an IQ above 50, they could probably deduce the points that you just made.
Yeah, I hope so. But we're still working out the plan, because I think we need to have about 35 people total involved between band members, crew, and production people. But the idea we have is we would be very socially distanced in playing together in a diamond shaped kind of thing, where each guy was on like a different location where maybe a sports player would play.
You're going to be wearing a hazmat suit?
No, I think we are actually going to put the crew in the hazmat suits. Not that they need it, if we're got masks and everything, but I think it'll just kind of add that extra bit of like caution to the viewer, unlike our president who doesn't even wear a mask. But let's not get political.
So you guys are scraping, you're trying to grow the brand outside the city, and I wonder like how much other cities are embracing this band from Boston. But when do you realize like, oh shit, like this is about to take off? Was it when you did shipping up to Boston?
Oh no, it was way before that. In terms of like when we put out our very first CD in 1997, it was just an EP, 6 songs. And we went on tour with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, who took us on our first. We had gone on other tours, but they had a big record at the time. We were getting to play in front of large audiences, like thousands a night. And we had pressed our own CD, and we were selling like 200-300 CDs a night. For an opening band where most of these people didn't know us, if people come up to the merchandise table and buy 300 CDs a night, they're like, wow, this was way more. We had to be calling back to the label, and the label, Cyclone Records, was just a kid from New Hampshire, doing a record label out of his garage. So we're calling up saying, we need another 3,000 CDs in a week. And this kid's like, what? He only pressed 1,000 to start with. And so that's when we knew. And we knew that, especially in those days, man, if someone bought a 7-inch single or your CD at your show, when you came back on your own, they were going to be there. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were like, this was cool. It was different, and so we would go back and follow up, the markets we did on that tour. And You know, we played 150, 200 people in that city. And the way we came up in a lot of those cities was not through, like, it wasn't like Live Nation booking us. It was like the local punk rock promoter, and that kid became a friend, and his friends became friends, and they grew older, and they had families, and they still come to our shows. And we almost became like the local band in every city, you know what I mean? Because we came up through their roots, not just through,
So
corporate
organic.
promoter, so anyway, so I think before Shipping Up to Boston came out, we had already had 3 full-length albums, and we were touring all over the world, so Shipping Up to Boston, what I always like to say Shipping Up to Boston did for us was, I'll give you an example. Say, on an average tour, we might do Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, and then take a day off and be driving down to Denver. Well, after Shipping Up to Boston, we could play places like Fargo, North Dakota. You know what I mean? Because in those like middle of like almost like 3rd, 4th tier markets, suddenly that we never came up through in that punk rock scene with the local friends, because we didn't know anyone in Fargo. And I'm just using that as an example, but all of a sudden we could go to places where we hadn't previously put down the roots. It didn't really even make the shows bigger in the cities that we were already going to. It maybe made it a little stronger, but it didn't change so much in the places we had already been established. It changed in the places we hadn't been,
When you recorded it, were you like, yo, this is a hit?
No, not at all. No, because there's an ongoing thing in the growth of the band and having to fight. Like, so there's a desire to want to do, like, always layer more guitars and more instruments on, always make it faster, leave no space. And if you think about a band like AC/DC or something, why are they so powerful? Because there's space, just a steady, banging drum beat. And then, when they leave space between when they all hit a chord, that's what makes that chord so powerful. So for years, we were just always like, yeah, in your face. And Shipping Up to Boston was really like the first song where we left space. You know, the kick drums going, and you got to wait for the next, and so it was very different for us. And at sometimes when we played it, because it was out before it was in the movie, it wasn't necessarily bringing the house down. It was like people liked it, but it was different, And so I think the movie really, and I will say that I'm usually like a pessimist when it comes to, like, I remember one time we were in The Sopranos. You might be too young to remember The Sopranos. That was on HBO.
Actually, not. It's my favorite TV show of all time.
Well, we were in an episode of The Sopranos, and I'm all excited.
Which episode?
The son was like going to visit colleges, and
Anthony Jr. He was always bitching.
Yeah, it was either the son or the daughter, and they were at like a bar, and so we had no idea how they were going to use the song, and I'm all excited, and I'm listening, and I'm watching, and I'm waiting, and my phone rings, and a friend says, like, "Did you hear it?" And I was like, "What?" I didn't even hear it. So my point is, it was just background music in a bar. So just being in something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to connect. It's kind of how it's used, what it's used in, and The Departed, when we went to the premiere of The Departed, not like the fancy New York, LA one, but they had a Boston premiere, and we went to that. Once again, we had no idea how the song was being used. When that came on the opening credits, and it was so loud, and obviously the connection of the movie and the band being about and from Boston, I was like, oh man, this is going to have an impact. And so, you know what I mean? Like, if we were just in The Departed, but the volume was lower and it was later in the movie, I think that was like the perfect storm of the use and the type of movie, and it really connected with people,
Movie was huge. And
Yeah.
so you think that was kind of really what gave you the big commercial bump? Did they start playing it in all the stadiums after the movie came? Or were they playing it at Fenway and at Gillette beforehand?
No, it was all after the movie, and it wasn't really turned it even into,
You must have been so stoked when they started playing at Gillette. Like, this is fire.
Yeah, Gillette really doesn't play it a lot. The Patriots, you hear it more on like TV than in the games. That DJ at Gillette stays pretty much to like the Aussie, AC/DC, you know,
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. He doesn't, but Jonathan Papelbon, who was the closer of the Red Sox, he started to use the song, and that's what really made it transcend into sports more than the movie. The movie didn't make it transcend into sports. When Papelbon used it as his song as the closer, that gave it the connection to sports. We had already had the connection to sports through other stuff. Like we in 2003 we did a song called "Time to Go," which is about growing up, going to the Bruins games on your own. Like when you were old enough, for me, like 12 years old, to take the subway into the game, go with my friends, come up and onto Causeway Street, the old L above you, and just the energy that was outside the old garden. So it wasn't like necessarily a song about the Bruins, but it was more about the experience of being a Bruins fan.
And you had Tessie as well.
Yeah, well, Tessie came out also. Yeah, Tessie came out before Shipping Up to Boston. Yeah, so.
Well, I remember that being in a video game I played growing up. I was like, whoa, this is major.
Yeah, so Tessie and Time to Go kind of started the sports thing for us. Papelbon using Shipping Up to Boston probably was, you know, and I think that's what translated Shipping Up to Boston into other sporting type of stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about him doing the dance and everything. That was huge. What it was sweet. I remember because those were really good sports years.
Oh yeah.
Have you had a moment where you're like, wow, my music like is totally emblematic of the city I grew up in? Like, what is it? Is that weird for you? Like, damn, like I kind of created a soundtrack for the city.
Well, there's no my, and it's always we. You know what I mean?
You made the band.
It's a group.
You're the trailblazer.
I was stupid enough to start it, but it's a we, not an I. And no, man, I don't know. You know, we never really think like that. You know what I mean? Like that just sounds like such a, you know, we've taken
Ego.
it. Yeah, well, you know, and I can be honest with you, when you hear it at games and stuff, it's a little awkward when you're there. Like when Papelbon would come out, he's the closer. That means we're winning. And I want to be clapping along. Big moment. I'm a fan, but like, oh, they're playing our song. I can't really clap along to my own song. And it was just like, it's cool and it's weird at the same time, you know. But in general, I'd say, you know, I'm grateful that we've obviously been able to have a career and been appreciated by the people in Boston. You know, not everyone likes us. There's a lot of people that hate us. There's a lot of people that don't like success in any form. It used to be, you know, for punk rock, it used to be like, well, you know, as long as you do it on your own terms and you don't sell out to the man. You know, we never went on a major label. Now we're on our own label. We've kept everything in house. You know, we're true to our roots. You know, but some people just, you know what I mean? So I think in the genre we came out of, there's some people that if they saw you when you were playing to 200 people, they're pissed that the 201st person found out about you, you know? And that's just the nature of music in a way. But, you know, you just try to, you know, focus on the positive, and we've had a lot of great opportunities. The city's been great to us, just from anything from playing along with the Red Sox, getting to be in parade, you know, playing parades, getting to, you know, play at Mayor Walsh's inauguration, just speaking of Marty, getting to play with like Springsteen and stuff. You know, we've had like amazing opportunities that, you know, definitely aren't lost on us. And most of our greatest memories of the band are stuff that isn't just us playing on the stage. As much as that's great, in a way, it's like, it's those other things I mentioned leading to
The early stuff.
Take other part of other stuff, like, you know, being a part of Marty's success, being a part of the Red Sox championships and all that. That's what, you know, bringing my kids on the float and World Series parades, having my kids on the field celebrating at home, sliding into home plate after we won the World Series in 2013. Are you kidding me? Like, as a father, that's the top of the list, you know?
Yeah, speaking of,
I hope those little bastards appreciate it someday.
what I was gonna say is, your kid like a super alpha male? I see like a gazillion trophies behind you.
No, oh no, I get 2 boys and a girl.
And what's
I don't
that,
know.
Harry Potter over there?
Yeah, my daughter's Harry Potter. I don't know what's that's a Larry Bird basketball. I got my Emmy back there. I got an Emmy.
Sweet.
Hold on, let me get the Emmy. Hold on. All right, so you think, wow, Ken Casey's got his own Emmy, right? Emmys, big deal, television. But then you flip it over and you realize that I got it because I was on the Charlie Moore show, and the episode of the Charlie Moore show I was on won an Emmy for best edit in a fishing show. And I think
What'd you guys do, catch a swordfish?
the edit was probably them sending a scuba diver down to clip a fish onto my line because I'm a horrible fisherman. So, but when you're on when you're on a show, everyone gets the Emmy. So what I do is I position it on the shelf so you see my name, but you don't see the explanation that it's best edit in a fishing show. So you might think I was on like a soap opera or something.
Where were you guys fishing? That's as
Like,
Boston as it gets, man. You and Charlie Moore catching fish off the coast.
it was it was Lake Winnipesaukee actually.
Oh, I didn't know there's big fishing up there.
He's a lake guy.
They never go down the Cape with the show?
They don't do ocean much. I mean, they might sometimes, but mostly he's in lakes.
Tougher to film probably on the ocean.
Okay, yes, exactly.
Hey, Slugs, you've been awfully silent, man. You got a question?
Yeah. So I know like this is going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. We were talking about your entrepreneurial endeavors. So I know you have a lot going on with the boxing, the restaurants, but what's your favorite project that you're currently working on?
Well, my favorite project will always be the band's charity foundation, the Claddagh Fund. We started that about 12 years ago, and we help with alcohol and drug addiction treatment, and we work with children's charities and veterans programs. And I guess we've always, when you think of musicians, it's like, I don't think we ever really fancied ourselves to be musicians for a living. And we used to practice, we used to have band practices at 7 a.m. just so we'd feel like we had a real job. And I remember the guy who ran, there was like a practice facility with all different bands, had rooms. And the guy who oversaw the building was always like, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never seen a rock band practice at 7 a.m. And he said, well, like I said, it makes us feel like we're, doing something with a purpose. But anyway, the charity has really made the band feel like it has a purpose, and that's like my passion thing, because it transcends music, and it's it just makes me feel whole, so that'll always be the number one thing in my heart.
Hey, B, you want to swing one?
Yeah, I got one. So, I'm always fascinated by the dynamics of a band, and your band's been around for over 20 years, and that's pretty rare. I'm just wondering, what has been the key to your band's longevity? I know you're the one original member, but you have a couple mates that were there from pretty much the beginning. Just like, what's the key to keeping the band together and managing all those relationships?
I think we've always. My assistant just brought me a smoothie. My assistant being my daughter. Thank you, honey. A nice kid.
That looks awfully healthy, Ken.
Yeah, it's like pineapple and spinach. Can you see that? Yeah.
What, you trying to lean out?
She's good. I'm always trying to lean out. It never works, but I'm trying.
I was gonna say, what if for this big surprise show, you just rip your shirt off and you just ripped up with a 6-pack?
No. If anything, I've added the COVID-19. So the quarantine.
Sorry.
The quarantine anyway. So the question was, so I think we've always had two things. We've had a like love it or leave it attitude with the band. Some people think we've always had this kind of mantra of no one person's bigger than the whole band. So of course, over all that time and spending time together, we've had band members that have left because in the early days the money was tough and they wanted to go back to their real job, or personality stuff, or creative differences. But we've always kind of made it like, listen, you know, if you're not happy, don't be in the band. Like sometimes you let someone get cancerous and stay and just infect. And we've remained friendly with pretty much everybody that's left the band, where it's just been like, listen, love it or leave it. If you don't want to do it, like we'll survive without you, because it's not about one person. And then we've also just kind of had this treat it like family. Like there's a big age range of about maybe I think 12 years between youngest to oldest. So it's a lot like little brother, big brother, you know. So we look out for each other, and you know, we're pretty good communicators. If something is not right, like you know, it's not about the chase for the band and this. It's like we're a family, and let's take care of it. And you know, we don't discount if someone's not feeling right or whatever. And I think that putting that first ahead of the music has, you know, made us work a lot better together.
Quick segue, and I don't want to talk about too much grim stuff, but like your music was like essential for the city after the Boston bombing. What was that kind of like for you?
I mean, we're all going through it together, you know.
Were you in the city when it happened?
I wasn't. It was my birthday, actually. April 15th is my birthday, and I was on tour in Santa Cruz, California, but my family was at that Patriots Day Red Sox game, and it had ended, and I thought they were going to McGreevy's, the bar I have on Boylston Street, which is one block from where the second explosion was, because there's a little roof you can watch from above the front door of McGreevy's, and I thought they were going to go watch there. And of course, I hear about the explosion. I'm calling, and I'm just getting that fast busy signal. And for all I knew, and then eventually, you know, when they got out of like downtown, the cell service was working, and they didn't even know about the bombing yet.
It wasn't at first though, right? I remember calling my sister because she was in the city, and like her calls would just go dead.
Yeah, there was no service until they got outside of the city a little bit, and I said, "Were you down there?" And they were all, "What are you talking about?" So, so that was a pretty traumatic day. And you know, all the people that work for me in McGreevy's, you know, we let everyone in the front door, took them downstairs and out the back, because you know there was an explosion, a second explosion. You didn't know if another one was coming up the street. So a lot of the people that were working for us that day, you know, just traumatized. And you know, and had a good friend of mine was a relative of Martin Richards. And yeah, so we had a lot of connection to the whole thing. And you know, we wrote the song 4:15:13, just about like, it was like just to be like cathartic with our own thoughts, you know what I mean? But one of the most powerful days ever in the band was we did a pretty immediately, like within maybe 5 days or a week, we did a benefit at the House of Blues. And man, the feeling in that room, it was a great show, but when we stopped to like acknowledge it, you could hear a pin drop. And actually, even when we were on tour, you know, we were on tour on the West Coast. So I think we played like Santa Cruz or San Francisco the night of the bombing, and we would stop and do a moment of silence every night. And man, you could, you know, when you're talking about a couple of thousand people drinking in a club, to get everyone's attention, to be quiet is nearly impossible. But every night you could hear a pin drop. And so, you know, it really stopped people in the tracks. And Boston has a lot of transplants everywhere too, you know what I mean? So like when we're playing on the West Coast, you know, it's like when you see a Red Sox game in LA, you know, how many Red Sox jerseys are there? You know, it's like, it kind of can get like that at our shows out there too, where there's a
Not in Milwaukee though. No shot.
No, we don't go to Milwaukee. But even in places where there wasn't per se a Boston, you know, contingent, they were all very respectful. And I think, you know, with that whole thing with a child dying and, you know, being at such a family event like the marathon, it hit people in a different way. Obviously, the tragic loss wasn't as big as 9/11 or anything like that, but it had a tone of like you were attacking a family day, you know. That's I think what made that such a such a emotional kind of thing for everybody.
Real quick, you've been getting a haircut in the quarantine, man? Because I asked Marty the same thing, and you're looking a little trimmed up.
My mother's a hairdresser, and
Don't lie to us.
I typically don't go to my mother because she's a hairdresser, like does old ladies, doesn't do the buzzer. But in tough times, you know what I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and
You got to look handsome for the podcast.
yeah. But she did. The missus has been doing the kids and me on the bottom, and then my mother comes in and does the top. So it's a 2-part process.
Oh, so your mom applied the gel this morning?
No, I applied the gel.
I was gonna say, was it the immaculate job, man?
I saw your podcast with Marty, and he was matted down. He had some old school dippity do in there. That was slicked down pretty good.
I know a lot of people were like, they had asked me after, they're like, you really called him out on his haircut, huh? He's definitely been going to the shop. I was like, nah, I think his wife's probably been taking care of it. Or his girlfriend, excuse me.
There's tutorials online that apparently are pretty.
Yeah, you gotta be real desperate for that.
Yeah.
Real quick, this is gonna sound like the stupidest thing of all time, but when you wrote the song "Shipping Up to Boston," are you shipping it from like New Bedford? Where are you coming from? Because if you go directly south beneath the city, you're likely to hit water. So it's not like you're coming off of a boat.
You know, we have a harbor, right?
Oh, I did hear about that.
Yeah. So, but it gives me a chance to talk about those lyrics because sometimes they seem silly and nonsensical, and sometimes we've had a few occasions where people mock them, and it gives me the opportunity to say that the lyrics to that song were actually written by one of the greatest American songwriters of all time, Woody Guthrie. We had written the song and had the music, and we were just in between writing albums and was kind of like, we'll write words to this. And I went down to the Guthrie archives. Woody Guthrie's grandson is a fan of the band. So his mother, Nora, who was Woody Guthrie's daughter, said, we'd like to invite you down. They send the invite to certain musicians and that they respect or like. And I was one of the last people that got to go in and hold the actual pieces of paper. It went on to all computer files afterwards, but I went into his archives, and he has thousands of songs that, just lyrics, because he traveled the country, a lot by boxcar and everything, and he would just write. But some of them never got recorded or put to music. So here they have these thousands of pages of lyrics. They don't know if there was a song that went with them or whatever. So we went down and we took a stack of songs out of there, and we recorded one of them from our 2003 album called Blackout, and that's the title track, Blackout. And that was a Woody Guthrie lyric that we put the music to. And for our next album, as I was thinking about how to write words to what became Shipping Up to Boston, all of a sudden, because Guthrie wrote some incredibly deep lyrics.
He was This Land Is Your Land, right? Didn't he write that?
Exactly. And so in the midst of these like poetic, deep lyrics, obviously it caught my attention because it said Boston. And I'm like, what is this? And I was just shipping up to Boston. So I took it. And as we were playing Shipping Up to Boston one day at rehearsal, it just came to my mind that Guthrie lyric will fit perfect in there. And that's how the song came about. But he used to write cool little notes on the lyric, so it said the lyric, and I believe this one said like written on the orange line, Boston, Mass, 1940 something. And it was like so cool that here you are holding the exact paper, tells you a little note of where and when he wrote it, and I had to have special white gloves on, and the lady that's in charge kept saying, "Sir, you have to be more gentle." And I'm literally holding the paper on top of my hand saying, how can I be more gentle than this? But it was very delicate. And after not long after I was there, they had to stop letting people. Maybe it was because of me and I wasn't gentle enough, but they stopped letting people hold the paper. Now it's all walked away sealed up. You
Yeah,
know?
you should have just stuffed it in your pocket. We would have been millions, man.
But they didn't let me take a photo, photocopies of everything. So.
Wait, so real quick, just tying it back. So where are you shipping it from?
Well, you'd have to ask Woody Guthrie. I mean, he was shipping up to Boston, probably from New York, and then he would have gone up and come into the harbor.
I would have said like the Bermuda Triangle. That would have been way more glamorous.
He was from New York. That's the only reason I thought that. But yeah, that's the thing about music is the beauty is it's in the ear of the interpreter. So when you listen to that song, it can be Bermuda.
Well, it's like then I'm shipping up from New Bedford, but it's like,
He could have been
but
coming
what
up,
business was I doing in New Bedford? Then people start to get suspicious.
he could have been coming up the Charles River from Dedham for all I know.
And he could have been drinking the Charles River water, getting loopy. Hey, did you have a good time?
That was a great time. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So we got 2 ending bits that you have to execute.
Okay.
I mentioned one earlier in the episode. The first one's called GDP sales mode. So I'm going to count down. I'm going to give you like a 5-second countdown, and we give you the floor for 40 straight seconds where you can pitch whatever you'd like to pitch. So, I mean, if you're being like a good philanthropist, you'd say, yeah, like I'm pitching my charity. People who are more capitalist would be like, hey, yeah, I got this sweet bar on Boylston. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to give you 40 seconds. I'm going to time it. I'm going to cut you off at 40, and then we'll discuss the second bit after the sales mode.
Holy crap. I mean, I already talked about the charity. I'm going to plug that really quick, claddagh.fund.org.
Wait. I got to give you the countdown. Don't cheat.
Okay.
Come on, Ken.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1, sales mode.
I'm going to double dip and plug the Claddagh Fund I already talked about at claddagh.org, CLADDAGHFUND.org. Check it out. You can make donations on there. But another restaurant we have, Lower Mills Tavern and Yellow Door Taqueria in Lower Mills, Dorchester, are combined as one doing takeout.
20 seconds.
lowermills.com, lowermillstavern.com, and we are doing 200 meals a week to the nurses at County Hospital. Support our takeout. We support the nurses. Thank you for all you do.
You got 5 seconds left.
Give it to the next guy.
Sweet. That was well executed. And listen, this is how we start and end the episode. You got to say hi, your name. So I'm Ken Casey of the Dropkick Murphys.
Did the mayor agree to all this stuff?
He did.
What a good guy.
Well, his sales mode, he like gave us inspirational words. I thought he was going to say you guys should be out there social distancing, but he was like,
Right.
yep, make sure you save your money, man. I was like, Mayor Walsh, you're just a great guy.
Nice.
So he, you got to say hi, your name, and this is my golden hour. Directly after, no break, hi, your name, and that was my golden hour. So I'd say this is Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys, and that was my golden hour. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Oh, he got the ADHD bug. This is gonna be a tough one, man.
Hey, this is Ken Casey from Dropkick Murphys, and this is my golden hour. Hey, this is Ken Casey from Dropkick Murphys, and that was my golden hour.
That was well executed, and it's not a Boston podcast until we have Ken Casey from the Dropkicks up, man. I appreciate you running this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. God
Thank
bless.
you.
See you
Hey,
later.
and oh yeah, B just said thank you. And I'm gonna stop recording, but I'd love to ship you guys a sweatshirt. You and your daughter a sweatshirt. Can you just
Sure.
shoot Sarah a good address and I'll send you whatever you want?
You got it, buddy.
Let's go, man. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
See
Thank you so much.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.